Alex Eala's post-match press conference, after a loss, pulled more views than Aryna Sabalenka and Carlos Alcaraz combined. And the WTA has never quite recovered from what that number revealed. Over 100,000 views on official streaming platforms. That's what Eala's presser drew. On the same day, Sabalenka, world number 1, and ATP star Carlos Alcaraz each pulled somewhere between 15,000 and 30,000. Eala had just lost a first-round match, and she outdrew the biggest names in the sport, in defeat, on the same afternoon. That single data point isn't a curiosity. It's the fault line that split the tennis establishment in two. And as of March 3, 2026, those aftershocks are still being felt. This is the story of how Alexandra Eala, ranked number 31 in the world with $1,665,667 in career prize money, became the most commercially powerful figure in women's tennis, and why analysts, journalists, and former Grand Slam champions are publicly going off about what the WTA did with that information.
Obviously not to this extent, and I think the ceiling that Alex Eala has is obviously that much higher. And I'm going to bring in a little boxing here because my dad wanted me to be a boxer, but I chose tennis. But Manny Pacquiao.
Good call.
Manny Pacquiao, we saw him when he, was at the top of his game, and alongside Roger Federer, he actually had more pride.
The day the system cracked was January 21st, 2026. Court 6, Melbourne Park. Alexandra Eala versus Alicia Parks. First round of the Australian Open. Eala was ranked outside the top 40 at the time, assigned to one of the smaller outer courts. What followed has been replayed on every major tennis commentary channel, from Analytics to Courtscope to Tennisitics. Thousands of fans, many carrying Filipino flags, showed up in numbers that Court 6 was never built to handle. Walkways became impassable. Queues stretched over an hour. The crowd didn't fit. The court didn't fit. And when veteran tennis writer Ben Rothenberg assessed the scene, he didn't file a routine match report. He wrote that by the acclamation of the throngs, Eala had been effectively coronated as the most popular player in women's tennis. That phrase lit the fuse, and the Australian Open's official response didn't help. The AO account posted on X, acknowledging what they called a learning curve and promising to come back strong next year. Not a denial, not a rebuttal, an admission that they'd completely miscalculated the gravitational pull of a 20-year-old from the Philippines. Martina Navratilova and Lindsay Davenport, speaking on Tennis Channel, pushed it further. Both said Eala should have been on a major show court from the start. Navratilova, 18 Grand Slam singles titles, didn't mince words. The massive Filipino audience needed a venue that could actually contain it. The scheduling row had begun.
So I think that if Eala, can keep doing well with her tennis, who knows? The sky's the limit on the court, off the court. I mean, she could be rolling in it if you.
But here's what happened next, because Eala lost that match. The scoreline was 0-6, 6-3, 6-2 to Alicia Parks. And what unfolded in the press room immediately after is where the controversy really took its sharpest turn. The WTA saw those 100,000 press conference views. Tournament directors saw them, and the institutional machinery started to move. Analytics, Courtscope, and Tennisitics responded with a wave of video essays, all variations of the same title. Tennis Experts goes off on WTA declaring Alex Eala as the most famous player. Their argument was pointed. The WTA was engaged in what they called hype-based scheduling, and it was compromising the meritocratic integrity that separates professional sport from content creation. The numbers they cited were hard to dismiss. Eala's Instagram engagement rate runs between 15 and 20%. The average for WTA top 10 players? 3 to 5%. She wasn't just outperforming. She was outperforming by a factor of 4 to 6. And the critics argued the WTA had started making scheduling decisions based on those numbers rather than the rankings.
I remember last year when she beat Iga Swiatek, and she kind of did it with a lot of grace and humility, and it was really, for me, it was terrific to see her take that match and watch her play after that and watch her try to continue to progress, because I like her game. Obviously, she wants to get better than where she is now.
And that's when Aryna Sabalenka entered the conversation. Sabalenka reportedly made comments describing Eala as the biggest draw for upcoming tours. The exact framing became a flashpoint. Critics directed a wave of backlash at the WTA for what they saw as allowing a world number 31 to overshadow multiple Grand Slam champions. For the tennis experts community, Sabalenka's statement, whether intended as a compliment, an observation, or something else entirely, felt like proof that the narrative around Eala had grown beyond anyone's control. Decision to place Eala in a marquee night decision to place Eala in a marquee night session at the 2026 Dubai Tennis Championships, center court, against Jasmine Paolini, brought that tension to a head. Those slots are reserved for the sport's biggest names. Eala was ranked number 31. The experts called it an overt move to capitalize on her fan base, not a reward earned through the draw.
In women's tennis right now.
Yes.
Is she bigger than Sabalenka? Is she bigger than Coco?
Dude, it's crazy. She's having the same effect that Fonseca was having, like, on the men's side last year in Miami.
It's like Fonseca, but I think it's bigger than Fonseca.
It is, yeah, it is.
Like, the Doha, like, crowds were insane for her last week.
Yeah.
Correct.
She's definitely one to watch, obviously because she's so good, but just for the atmosphere. You want to tune into her matches just to see what it's like on the court.
There's got to be like a little jealousy maybe from some of the women, that girls coming in, she's not top 10.
What changed the conversation, at least for a moment, was that Eala went out and beat Jasmine Paolini. Paolini, ranked number 8 in the world, center court Dubai. Eala won. And with that result, her competitive resume started carrying real weight in a debate that had been, until then, almost entirely about metrics and optics. Look at what the record actually shows. In March 2025, as a wild card at the Miami Open, a WTA 1000, Eala beat Iga Swiatek, ranked number 2. Then Madison Keys, ranked number 5, in the same tournament. She reached the semifinal. That September, she won her first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara, defeating Panna Udvardi. At the 2025 U.S. Open, she recorded her first Grand Slam main draw victory, taking down Clara Tauson, ranked number 15. Against top 10 opponents, Eala is 3-2. Her supporters cite that number constantly. Built for this, they say. This isn't a Cinderella story, it's a pattern. The skeptics, though, point to the other side just as readily. The 0-6 first set against Alicia Parks. The 0-6, 2-6 loss to Coco Gauff in Dubai. The inconsistency that shadows every breakthrough. Martina Navratilova gave the most direct assessment of the whole situation. Ahead of the 2026 Indian Wells Open, Navratilova described Eala as a crafty lefty who uses variety nicely. It sounds generous, and in some ways, it is. But Navratilova didn't stop there. She called Eala's serve a significant weakness, saying Eala needs a bigger serve and bigger kick to compensate for her slight build and to make her game pay off more at the highest level. An 18-time Grand Slam champion just said the player the WTA is positioning as its biggest draw has a serve that isn't ready for where she's being placed. That's not a write-off, that's a roadmap. But for the tennis experts, it's also a data point. The gap between the most famous label and a #1 ranking isn't just a number on a leaderboard, it's a serve. It's physical development. It's time.
Week after week, as she has done well and established herself as a really good player on tour, they all come out to support her. And so I think we saw that in Australia when it was kind of overcrowded. They put her on too small of a court. We saw it here. You can hear it from the hotel. You can hear the crowd roaring, especially at night. So it's incredible.
Now, here's the detail that reframes the whole thing. On March 3, 2026, Alexandra Eala was welcomed at Nike World Headquarters in Oregon. New portraits of Eala were displayed in the hallway, the one reserved for what Nike calls its greatest athletes. The world's most recognizable athletic brand placed a 20-year-old with $1,665,667 in career prize money on that wall. Not $10 million, not $5, $1,665,000. The average WTA top 10 player has earned more than $10 million. Eala's commercial standing has already lapped her competitive earnings by a margin with no recent parallel in women's tennis. And on February 22, 2026, Milo Philippines officially launched Eala as their newest champion ambassador alongside athletes like E.J. Obiena under the hashtag #MyMiloStory campaign, framing her not just as a tennis player but as a product of grassroots Philippine sports culture, a national icon, something bigger than rankings. The tennis experts community has a name for this arc. They call it the Raducanu treatment. Emma Raducanu's 2021 U.S. Open run made her the most talked-about player in the world almost overnight. The media machine accelerated past her results, and critics invoking that comparison suggest the overwhelming media attention around Eala could be suffocating for her development, that she's now carrying the expectations of an entire country into every single match. What pushes back against that concern is what the WTA is quietly building. Serious discussions are underway about establishing a WTA event in Manila, driven entirely by the Eala effect. Analysts call it a potential commercial explosion, with Eala as the center court anchor and a market of over 100 million people waiting to be activated. The WTA's promotion of Eala isn't just about Instagram engagement. It's a geographic strategy built around one player's existence.
But I mean, it's you could argue that it was, maybe a poor schedule and maybe they could schedule him on a bigger court. Yes, but again, she's so young and she's just coming through. Eala, that's been a talk, and which is understandable. There's some players coming from respective countries, like she's coming from Philippines, which is now a big deal. She's been the biggest ever, tennis player from that country, which is a big country, and there's a big interest.
But the scoreboard doesn't care about strategy, and the 2026 Sunshine Swing is here. Eala enters Indian Wells as the 31st seed, carrying 390 ranking points to defend, the points from her 2025 Miami semifinal, where she, as a wild card, took down the world number 2 and world number 5 back-to-back. Those points built the ranking. Those points are what the most famous label currently rests on. The draw sets up a potential third-round rematch with Coco Gauff, who beat Eala 0-6, 2-6 in Dubai. Acealytics, Courtscope, and Tennisitics are watching. Navratilova's serve prescription remains unaddressed, and the fake news ecosystem, the fabricated Linda Fruvirtova trash girl quotes, the fictional Rafael Nadal warnings, the manufactured allegations, keeps running alongside every real result, muddying the discourse around every win and every loss. The WTA has placed its institutional bet. Nike has hung the portrait. Milo has launched the campaign. Ben Rothenberg recorded the acclamation of the throngs. Aryna Sabalenka called Eala the biggest draw, and Martina Navratilova said the serve still isn't there. Alexandra Eala, 20 years old, number 31, crafty lefty, giant killer national symbol, is about to walk onto the courts at Indian Wells with 390 points on the line and an entire argument waiting for her answer. The question every analyst and institution in tennis is watching isn't whether Eala is the most famous player in the WTA. The question is whether the most famous player becomes the best, or whether this moment goes down in history as the day the sport's commercial ambitions finally outran its competitive reality.